Hi, my name is Lyric, and today we're going to be reacting to detailed Michael Jordan analysis using new data to gauge his impact. Greatest Peaks episode 6, the Greatest Peaks episode on Michael Jordan. Now, if you don't know, we're doing this for every player, where we're going to be looking at all the 8 GOAT candidates, and we're going to be looking at their highlights, then their Greatest Peaks episode by Thinking Basketball, which obviously you should watch the original video by Thinking Basketball, they're great, and then the Making the Case video. Now, we've already watched all of a shit ton of Michael Jordan highlights, right? But now we're on to his Greatest Peaks video to get a more detailed analysis of specific parts of his game to tell how impactful he was, how he impacted the game on both ends of the floor. So yeah, I think it's gonna be a great video. The Greatest Peaks series has been great so far. We only got 2 more players in this GOAT candidates we haven't watched in this series where we're doing the highlights, Greatest Peaks, then Making the Case. It's just Jordan and LeBron yet left. So yeah, if you want more videos like these, make sure to do this little thing called liking the video, because if you don't like it, then I'm probably just gonna stop making them, and that's, I mean maybe you don't want me to make them, I don't know. And also subscribe, because one, a lot of my Michael Jordan videos have more views than I have subscribers, which, like, bruh, what are you doing? And also, let's try to hit 700 subs. I'm at 644 as I'm recording this, so try to hit 700 subs, man. That'd be really cool. If you find me entertaining at all, I guess. Alright, let's begin.
You know Michael Jordan.
Obviously.
You know his legendary moments. You know that fadeaway. You know his aerial
Kobe
gifts. But do you know what made him unique as a scorer? The ins
man.
and outs of his passing game, his defensive strengths and weaknesses. Jordan's mystique grew in the 90s, but did he actually reach his peak before he ever hoisted a championship trophy? And were those the best seasons that we've ever seen on a basketball court?
Let's see, man.
You are watching what greatness is all about.
Where's Larry Bird in all this? Has it blocked by Elijah Wan?
Michael Jordan saves the day.
This series tackles one question: who was the best at his best? We start at the ABA merger and go through the best.
This is an elite series, man.
Stretches, examining the legends who provided the most on-court impact. These are the Greatest Peaks.
Episode 6, Michael Jordan, 89 to 91.
He's the best athlete. He's one of the best competitors. He's one of the most
Before
skilled
Jordan's rookie
players.
season.
And that, to me, makes him the best basketball player that I've ever seen play.
In this series, we've seen how big men ruled the game for decades, and how the offensive brilliance of Magic Johnson and Larry Bird reimagined what taller players could do. But there were high-flying wings with offensive success in the 60s and 70s too. Elgin Baylor was the first superstar.
Elgin Baylor, very underrated player. I think he's the greatest player to never win a championship.
Really attacked vertically off the bounce. Then Julius Erving and David.
We're gonna do a video on Dr. J, by the way. I have that Clayton Crowley made a video. Guy made the Making the Case series made a video called The Legend of Dr. J. I have not watched it yet.
Thompson.
We're gonna react to that.
Extended that approach. As a kid growing up in North Carolina, Jordan idolized Thompson, who combined an
We did a video on David Thompson as well.
explosive first step with a little skywalking to finish third
Skywalker.
in MVP voting in 1978. Jordan was the next leap in that evolutionary chain, and his incredible first step set a new standard for attacking the rim. When he entered the league, Michael could just teleport around defenders with his burst, able to get around players in just a single step.
Oh my god, bro.
And even though he was a hair slower by 1989, this incredible acceleration was always the foundation of Jordan's success. He'd burn defenders to the right or to the left with this penetration, and he was so quick that blinking was dangerous. Joe Dumars flinches at a turnaround here and then becomes a turnstile. There wasn't anything special about
no room
this
for error when gunning Jordan, man.
step. It was just mind-bending acceleration. Jordan's like a Formula One car racing against Priuses. That acceleration shot him out of a cannon.
Acceleration
and that
underrated.
Speed was a launch pad for
Don't
his
really talk about his
finishing.
speed.
He's flying by the second step here, and that helps him actually fly. Really, the man spent so much time in the air he could have registered a tail number with the FAA. Some of these drives remind me of a running back turning the corner, where he'd take off and get really low, then transfer all that energy into his leaping. Note how his body protects the ball here as he hovers to the other side of the rim. and he leveraged his body as an airborne shield like this, especially when jumping off of 2 feet into contact.
Nice.
Michael was strong enough to absorb hits while airborne like this, and these physical gifts helped him
No,
reach
he had
the
no
line
fear going into the paint, man. He would just take all those hits.
at historically prolific rates. Magic kept defenses off balance with his playmaking, but Michael simply overwhelmed them with relentless pressure on the rim. His huge hands helped make
Gigantic
some of this
hands.
aerial wizardry possible, manipulating the ball in the air on these drives or holding it away from shot blockers. That's near the top of the square on
Oh
the
my
release,
God.
and these things were so big that the ball could slip off mid-shot, and he could still reset it in his catcher's mitts like nothing happened.
Or his hands, bro.
Of course, the hang time also makes this work too,
Yep.
contorting and bending his body around bigger defenders in the paint. Jordan displayed the most fluid body control of perhaps any player ever, slithering around opponents
Yeah,
as he
man.
floated into a clear shot attempt.
The amount of adjustments you can
And
do
we
in
haven't
the
even
air is
mentioned
insane.
his footwork, which was balletic
Yeah.
at times, allowing him to keep his balance while pivoting around like a top, and then that hanging aerial control
one.
to still square his shoulders on the shot. His legs were kicked out on the foul here, and it didn't matter. All that hovering and twisting helped Michael's mid-range game too. His typical pull-ups were supercharged with that elevation, hitting a trampoline and then firing over defenders. And whether he was twisting,
Yeah.
leaning, or
Can't block that,
stopping on
bro.
a
Can't
dime,
jump as nearly as
he
high as
could
him.
square his shoulders and still shoot. And this kinesthetic mastery made his famous dagger against Cleveland
Yep,
in
the shot.
1989 possible, where he pumps and hangs, but right there
Look at that.
squares himself comfortably and strokes it.
He's in the air for
Incredible.
so long, man.
We shouldn't overlook his shooting from the mid-range either. He was an 85% free throw shooter during these years and was a knockdown shooter inside 20 feet
Yep.
when given space. But he also created space vertically with that leaping ability, changing directions and springing clear for a good look. Michael didn't make thousands of jumpers with a hand in his face. He made thousands by jumping so high
But there was
his
no hand.
releases were rarely ever bothered.
Them so high they can't put a hand in that man's face, bro. We got, oh my god, we got the double ad by YouTube. Thank you very much. Make sure to subscribe. If we get enough subscribers, I can afford YouTube Premium, man. If you get annoyed by these.
As you've probably noticed, his handle was good enough to support sharp cuts, and he really liked this low in and out dribble to set up defenders
Ooh.
and probe for open space.
Mm.
He wasn't an incredible ball handler, but he was good enough to knife around the court, and since he could also score at the basket with either hand, Jordan's robust repertoire made him the greatest scorer in NBA history.
There you go, he
If we
said
look
it.
at 3-year playoff stretches and adjust for inflation to 2020 scoring rates, Jordan scored an astounding 34 points every 75 possessions, on true shooting 7% better than average from 1989 to 1991. He holds the top 9 stretches in postseason scoring rate, peaking in
Good
the
God.
late 80s and early 90s when his explosiveness was still intact and his mid-range accuracy was dialed in. He could always fall back on his most iconic move, the
Fade.
fadeaway. You see what I did there? Sometimes MJ would get
Ah,
right into this
I
off
see
the
it.
catch, and that hang time and separation created really clean releases. He preferred going to his right
So
hand on
smooth.
this move until about 1990 or 1991, when that vintage fade to the other side started popping up more regularly. I recommend J. Kyle Mann's History of the Fadeaway for more on this shot. Since the triangle offense organically
Okay.
generated post-ups, Phil Jackson's arrival in 1991 facilitated more fadeaways for Jordan. Here's a great counter cut, audibling off this route with the defender overplaying him and flashing
Ooh.
right back to the low
Nice
block
turn.
for the
Fade.
catch and turn. Michael's agility helped him off ball too, using screens and setting up opponents for sharp changes in direction that freed him up. So much of Chicago's offense before Phil Jackson was bringing Jordan off picks from the baseline, and since he was comfortable flowing into attacks like this since his college days, the activity and principles of the triangle helped harness his off-ball movement. The triangle offense prioritizes balancing the floor and ball movement, principles that played right into Jordan's strengths as a catch-and-go scorer. While Michael could read screens and then flash to open areas well, he could also punish ball denial with that quick change of direction, and with increased space, he was so hard to contain. These back cuts were organic, feeling an overplay, then darting free to the bucket. And his movement meant defenses always had to worry about him. He cuts right out of traps like this instead of idling, and even when a teammate misses him, those cuts could lead to rebounds. All his activity and his athleticism made him an excellent offensive rebounder, which is often overlooked because he was usually doing the shooting, but this added additional off-ball value to his game.
Nice.
On the other hand, his weakness as an off-ball player was his three-point shooting, where he peaked at 34% on low volume. It didn't seem to matter if these were pull-ups or catch-and-shoot chances, but I do think Jordan's release at the apex of his huge jump limited his range to a degree. When the NBA shortened the line to 22 feet in 1995, Mike made 38% on over 750 attempts before struggling again when the line returned to 24 feet. Otherwise, Jordan was such a dynamic scorer that he flummoxed almost any defense of the time. The Bad Boys Pistons dented him slightly, but that's about it. And yet, despite his otherworldly scoring gifts, he wouldn't have 6 championships without a huge part of his game that is often overlooked.
Passing. Getting into this now.
Rumors. Michael Jordan is retired.
This is an elite ad. I've seen this before.
Retirement. I don't know. I know he loves basketball. He's probably playing in his backyard with his kids, but I don't think he faked his retirement.
When Michael was younger, he was often criticized for shooting into double teams frequently. And while his athleticism was breathtaking, his shot selection was questionable at times. Some of these were really difficult attempts. He was so skilled that it's hard to say he took poor shots per se, but MJ was frequently doubled or tripled and bypassed wide open teammates for some of these attempts. Given his high volume shooting,
it changed when he gets
players
Phil
in
Jackson
NBA
later
history who shot into extra coverage while a teammate was open more than Michael Jordan. Now, without strong three-point shooting teammates back then, missing these spot-up shooters probably didn't hurt that much. And more importantly, these missed passes were easily outweighed by all of the open shots Michael did set up. His constant penetration collapsed defenses into the lane, and when he did opt to pass, Chicago ended up with wide open looks. That last play was a jump pass, and Jordan often went airborne for a shot before checking down to an open shooter like this. That Luigi hang time helped him to react to defensive decisions before finally passing the mic to a bandmate. These jump passes set up more than just outside shots. Jordan preferred to hit teammates in the lane, and his go-to playmaking move was drawing a defender away from the rim as he hovered, then throwing one right to that vacated spot. Mike loved this jump and dump laydown, where he drove to the basket and then when the big man stepped up to help, found a way to drop it off for a layup. These were some of his best passes, and he really dialed them in during the 1991 playoffs when he anticipated these little openings more and
91
used
finals,
his
that was 11
passing
assists a
ability
game.
to exploit them more consistently. However, leaving his feet like this caused some issues when he decided not to shoot, holding a hot potato while hovering with no clear outlet. When he was in the air like this, he was at the mercy of whatever was open. He switches to a pass here, but there's nothing really there. And another problem with passing like this is avoiding all the contesting arms and hands, so many of these balls were deflected. And as a result, his reactionary jump passes led to a number of his turnovers. Jordan rarely anticipated openings as a passer. This is a simple lead pass to the streaking Horace Grant, but he had to throw it early and he sees it late and then he thinks better of it. Here he doesn't realize this teammate is uncovered, and so it's a dubious jumper instead of a layup pass. On this one, Scottie Pippen's backdoor cut opens a lob, but Jordan sees it after it's free, then fires it, and man could Pippen pass. Most of Michael's best times were more reactive, seeing an opening and then whipping it to a teammate. Despite his reputation, he was always a willing passer, and learning more angles and reads over the years helped him drop higher level dimes like this. He threw in a bit of manipulation beyond that jump pass, going to the look away at times, and this is his peak passing in 1991, moving the defender with his eyes, then impersonating Magic in front of Irvin himself.
Hey.
Jordan was also willing to look ahead for outlet passes. This is one of his better ones, and he was a good transition passer, dropping a brilliant dime on the break every once in a while too. To be fair, he missed plenty of good passes in these spots as well. Pippen's clear here, and flying into the lane, that familiar drop-off is open. In studying passers over the years, the great ones will find about 90% of these open looks, whereas Michael connected on them about 66% of the time. But keep in mind the sheer volume of open chances he carved out by drawing attention away from his teammates with his perpetual scoring.
It's made up for his scoring.
In the playoffs, there are no more than 5 players in NBA history who created more shots for teammates than Jordan.
Damn.
And if we use the same playmaking estimates from the prior episode, Michael set up his teammates for an open look an estimated 14 times every 100 possessions.
But he doesn't
a stretch
score.
only
But
bested by the game's top offensive engines.
He doesn't make his teammates better, right, LeBron fans?
Years. And so, well, Jordan was revered
Westbrook in there
from the last 15 years. And so, well, Jordan was revered for winning 10 scoring titles. He was one of the all-time playmaking machines in league history.
Damn.
That raised a weak roster and carried a strong one later on. From 1985 to 1989, before Scottie Pippen emerged and the triangle took hold, the Bulls' offensive efficiency was only around league average. There was only so much Michael could do as the lone offensive force on a defensively constructed roster. Pippen's emergence gave the Bulls another elite finisher and secondary scoring weapon, but more importantly, another playmaker. Scottie's passing is historically under-discussed, and he was a deadly grab-and-go player, either finding layups in transition or doing the damage himself as he came down the lane. Pip was also one of the all-time great wing defenders, and that, along with his unselfishness, made him a near-perfect complementary piece.
Perfect sidekick.
Michael.
Perfect
Jordan
sidekick.
himself improved as a passer at the end of the 80s and into the 90s, and with better teammates, the Bulls roared to some of the best offensive seasons on record, right behind Magic's Lakers. And when we think of Magic as having everything run through him on offense, Michael's combination of scoring and playmaking gave him one of the highest offensive loads in playoff history.
You got an ad. That was a really good playmaking revelation. Top 5 most points created for teammates in like a season.
While Jordan's passing...
Top 5. Yeah, points created for teammates. Not necessarily assist, but making teammates better because your scoring was so great that it attracted everything else and made it easier for your teammates to score.
Highs were mixed with some blemishes. His defense was even more boom or bust. The highlight reels where he's flying all around the court overlook all of his strikeouts and instead focus on his impressive home runs. For instance, jumping passing lanes like this might produce his most valuable defensive plays. These interceptions could be huge, pick sixes that went the other way for easy points, and at times Jordan was like a cornerback sitting on a passing route with elite closing speed. In 1989, Ty Aficionado and coach Doug Collins busted out a half-court trap at times, allowing MJ to size up cross-court passes and then turn them into easy offense. But these gambles whiffed as well. Michael would sell out for them frequently, and in this case he can cover this kick-out pass here, but is going for more with the steal, and that can lead to wide-open looks. By my eye, Jordan hit pay dirt more often than not, but there was a tax to pay for these steal attempts. He could get in passing lanes without gambling, reacting quickly in short space with the defensive equivalent of his first step. This is a bread and butter cross screen of the era, and Jordan not only switches it, but pounces like a black cat. And he could shoot the gap with that burst. This pass is airborne for less than half a second, and, well,
here we go.
Michael's airborne for more than half a second.
Clip.
Michael's quickness helped him keep smaller, shifty point guards in front of him, And on the outside, he could churn his feet while swiveling his hips to the dribbler in textbook fashion. For instance, he often guarded Isaiah Thomas during the bad boy battles, and MJ's acceleration allowed him to recover laterally at times, and his combination of size, strength, and agility held Isaiah below his normal scoring numbers in those matchups. But that Kenny Rogers gambling was part of his man defense too. Michael would backpedal to recover a lot, and his preferred move there was to swipe down for the steal as he slid in front of a dribbler. There was a lot of swiping, actually, spamming the Y button at times.
Spamming the Y button.
Connected, but they also gave opponents openings that would have been way harder to find if Jordan had just played it straight up. When he wasn't swiping at the rock, he was reaching, first on Joe Dumars here, then another reach around for the steal.
Basically made a lot of steal attempts that
steals a
either
lot on the block like this.
That were a
and
big
here
gamble a
lets
lot of
the smaller
time.
Bryant Shaw turned clear for an easy look. MJ did flick plenty of balls this way, leading to deflections or turnovers, man, but he was usually overly aggressive with his move, lurching at air not once on this play, but twice, leading to a layup. He brought those same habits to the post, the swipe down move or a little flick, and while he stripped opponents some time, I think he was better off playing straight up against post players and using his athleticism and strength to contest. Against our old friend Magic in the 1991 finals, Jordan gambled, and then gambled, and then gambled.
A lot of gambling.
And was absolutely torched by the bigger Johnson.
I mean, he did like
post.
gambling, to be fair. I could see why he would do it a lot.
On occasion, Chicago sent a second defender, and you know what happened. Another defensive gambit Jordan loved was the surprise double team, where he ambushed unsuspecting players and let those giant hands pickpocket people.
It's really easy to
As
pickpocket when you
Karl
have that
Malone
big of
knows all too
hands.
Well, these
Karl Malone.
well-timed sniper shots.
Yep, that's the
worked
biggest
against
steal
the
of all
deliberate
time.
Post-ups of the 80s and 90s. Of course, there was a small price to pay when he couldn't cash in on these because it left his mark wide open without structured rotations. And even after this play turns into a more standard trap, it's Jordan's man who was wide open the whole time on the other side of the court. Michael just had an unquenchable thirst to make plays on defense back then. He's guarding a shooter here, but drifts into the paint looking for action, and that was Randy Whitman's fourth straight jumper. Jordan lurked like this because he did make a ton of plays from the paint. One of his favorites was swooping in at the exact moment post players were shooting. And MJ was one of the best shot blocking guards of all time.
Yeah, him and Dwayne Wade.
Athleticism to hang and reach shots. And this gave him a level of rim protection that most guards couldn't match. These saves at the hoop were high value plays, and that defies physics.
Look at the
You would
guy.
be floating above the ground, never touching the surface.
Even with a little less verticality, by 1990 or 91, he could still fly in.
Oh my
and save
god,
the day.
the vertical leap, bro.
This play from 1989 demonstrates the big payoff of Jordan lurking near the lane. He's able to stop a dunk.
What a
and
block.
this quick reaction and elevation
this.
would be elite even for a big man. Those aerial superpowers even allowed him to protect the rim from behind. He served as a backstop here by flying in from the free throw line on this incredible rotation.
I'm a T-Stybule type defense.
I don't know about you, but I find Jordan's high-risk defensive style to be difficult to evaluate. If we look at our historical impact metrics, he's right at the top of the heap with a nice lead in my box plus minus model. But it's difficult for stats like these to handle defense well. And what we really care about is overall impact. So
Right.
the team here at Thinking Basketball combed through nearly 200 old Jordan games to calculate his plus minus and give us
Damn.
a better picture of his impact. In the playoffs from 1989 to 1991, Jordan's Bulls were outscored by 12 points every 48 minutes when he sat on the bench.
Damn.
But they outscored opponents by 8 points when
Yeah, that's
he
pretty
played.
damn good.
There's some noise in stats like these, but Chicago's 20-point increase with Jordan in the game would rank 9th since the league began tracking this in 1997.
I thought it'd be higher.
Which puts him up with the all-time results, but certainly doesn't separate him from the pack.
Damn, David Robinson.
As we've seen, he was quick to rotate most of the time. Here the play unfolds rapidly and Michael jumps on the threat. But I wouldn't say he had great help awareness. He's late recognizing this despite a teammate pointing it out, and he could become momentarily preoccupied with action in front of him, forgetting to rotate for a second. He was a strong enough defensive rebounder as a guard that it probably added some value to his defensive game. And given all of his defensive strengths and weaknesses, I view him overall as a strong all-league defender, but not quite an all-time defensive wing.
All right,
there are
wow.
still larger
Okay.
questions to think about.
That's actually
here.
very surprising.
How would he fit next to a post player who wanted the ball more? Are there diminishing returns next to a ball-dominant star? And what's his legacy look like if Scottie Pippen never emerged? What's undeniable is that Jordan was the first perimeter player to dominate with mega scoring and playmaking, which puts him in the conversation for greatest offensive player ever. And given his defensive impact, it's easy to see why Michael Jordan is often considered the greatest basketball player of all time. For more...
All right, I know he's actually... I saw that at the end of this playlist, there is actually... he's doing the top 10... We're going to watch the entire Greatest Peak series, then we're going to watch... He has a video, top 10 peaks in his opinion. So we're going to see if he is Michael Jordan #1, because he has his defense rated a lot lower than a lot of people do, but he does consider him up there as one of the greatest offensive players, if not the greatest offensive player of all time. So, yeah, that was a pretty good video. More detailed analysis on Michael Jordan. I like these more detailed analysis. And, and we're going to react to Michael Jordan making the case next. And, make sure to get us 700 subscribers. And make sure to like the video if you want more Michael Jordan stuff. Just anything like that, leave a request in case you want to see something, or else I'm not going to friggin' do it if you don't tell me what you want from me, okay? Yeah, bye.